Welcome to Soda City Living, the podcast that celebrates life, culture, and community in Columbia and across South Carolina. I'm your host, Lisa Mustard, and each week we'll share the people, places, and stories that make the Palmetto State such a special place to call home. Please note that the content provided in this podcast is for informational and educational purposes only and is not intended to replace professional mental health care, diagnose, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your own licensed mental health provider or medical professional regarding your specific situation. While I am a licensed marriage and family therapist and my guests are also professional counselors, the discussions in this podcast are meant to offer general insights and should not be taken as personalized therapeutic advice. Listening to this podcast does not establish a therapist-client relationship with me or any of my guests. If you are experiencing a mental health crisis or have thoughts of harming yourself or others, please contact a mental health professional, call 911, or go to the nearest emergency room immediately. You can also reach out to a crisis hotline such as the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline at 988 in the United States for immediate support. Every individual's journey is unique, and what works for one person may not be suitable for another, so please use discretion and seek appropriate care as needed. Hey friends, welcome back to another episode. I'm your host, Lisa Mustard, and I want to give a big welcome to Ann Mac Prevost. So glad that you are here today.
Thanks for having me, Lisa. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited to share you with our listeners. You and I have known each other for a couple years, and having you on the show is just great because you are a specialist in teenagers and anxiety, and I think that is such a big topic in the world right now. So, can you share with our listeners a little bit about your practice and maybe how you got into this niche?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I am a licensed professional counselor. I have a private practice here in Columbia, South Carolina, and I was in the group private practice setting for about, 10 years. And then March 2020, ironically, I decided to rent some space and start my own practice before the world shut down and COVID happened. So, naturally, I had a lot of anxious teens. They were getting used to being virtual learning and all the things. So I just love working with this population. And I've been doing it pretty regularly since right after COVID.
So, tell us about the most common anxiety presentations that you're seeing in teens right now.
Yes. So I'm seeing a lot of teens with social anxiety. They basically want to avoid embarrassing themselves at all costs. So that's going to look like I don't want to eat in the lunchroom. I do not want to be in a big crowd. They might want to sit in the back row of their classroom. So they're super anxious socially. I see the kids that are like the chronic worrier. They always have something that they're worried about. And if that worry subsides or if the situation changes, they'll find something else to worry about. So these are kids, it's really generalized anxiety disorder, but it's presented in a way where they're onto one thing, one worry to the next. There's the anxious avoidant type. So these are the kids that are going to be the ones that want to avoid school. They like to avoid things like driving in a car, like getting their driver's license. That's a really common one. These are the kids that don't want to do the team sports. They might be really nervous meeting new people, and they even might have a hard time calling the pizza delivery guy. They're so used to doing it online and avoiding those interactions. I see that a lot as well. The super stressed, agitated type, they might come across as having a really short fuse. And lots of times at home, parents will see those last straw moment, but they've been worried and they've been having a hard time all day long. And so they might just snap at what seems silly, but it's been building. I see a lot of perfectionists, high achieving kids who they make a 95, that's not a 100.
Mm.
It seems like nothing is good enough. And so that perfectionism is really rooted in the anxiety as well. And these kids are chronically stressed. Lots of times the parents will even come in and they're like, I don't know where this child came from. We don't even ask her about her grades. And they just put so much pressure on themselves. And then with SATs and getting into college, that gets super ramped up as well.
Yeah.
And then we have the exploders. Oftentimes it's girls that I see, their parents will call and say, she has a hard time regulating her emotions. So their anxiety is coming out. They might not appear anxious, like the more shy, withdrawn types. Teachers might not even say that they're anxious. They just seem like they're maybe dramatic or too much. Those are some words that parents will use. If you're a parent of an exploder, you know it. Sometimes they'll save all the good stuff for you when they get home. I think people pleasing, when kids are really big people pleasers, that can be an indication of some anxiety. I don't see as many of those. My guess is they're not really causing trouble at home. Parents aren't as worried about them. They're too busy pleasing other people, but eventually it can catch up with them and
Yeah.
wreak havoc on their mental health.
Yeah. Okay. Wow, that's quite a spectrum of, like, behaviors that you
Mhm.
come across, but they all go back to an underlying type of anxiety of some sort.
Yeah.
How do and because I know we have people who listen to the show who aren't therapists, so I wanna address this as a parent or as a
Yes.
person out there who works with, like, how do you know when it's normal versus becomes a problem? When should somebody seek counseling?
That is a great question.
Mhm.
And I wish I had a one size fits all answer, but my best answer would be when I'm biased. So I think that all kids could benefit from some anxiety or some anxiety coaching. But when it's getting in the way of their daily life, when you notice that they're not wanting to go do things with their friends anymore, or when they really are starting to be more withdrawn, if they're not, you want to look at also, are they sleeping okay? When you notice those red flags of just like their baseline of functioning is off and they're changing some of their behaviors that they normally have been able to engage in, that's when I would come seek help. And then you could also just talk to them about counseling and let them know it's an option. And if they ever want to, that's always a great idea too.
So how has it changed in the past, I would say 5 to 10 years? Because it's 2026. You've been in private practice, sounds like, for a good number of years. Has it
Mhm.
changed, like, what you're seeing or what you believe is the precursor to these anxiety issues?
Yes, I have noticed a change. And I guess I'm going to relate it back to COVID and cell phones.
Yeah.
When we were in grad school, no one was teaching us about social media and cell phones and how that was going to impact people. That wasn't a thing.
Mhm.
And so I think cell phones and social media have definitely ramped up the anxiety. You have the teens where their parents aren't letting them have a phone, which, you know, and they're following all the guidelines of what's best for them. And they're feeling left out because they don't know what their friends are talking about. Then you have the kids who have the phone. Sometimes they get it too soon. And then that also has a whole nother wide range of problems. They're constantly comparing themselves. They're feeling lesser than. It can really tank their confidence. I do think that the cell phones have definitely increased teen anxiety. I personally can't imagine going back in time, being a teenager and being able to see where my friends were. Was I left out? Things like that. Those things, it's just constant for these kids with it's a hard thing to navigate with the phones.
Yeah.
And then also, before COVID and virtual learning, going to school in person, that was never a choice.
Everyone in Colombia has a favorite spot to call home. The real question is, where's yours? If you're buying or selling in the Midlands, Andrea Reynolds with Berkshire Hathaway Home Services Midlands Real Estate is the one to call. She's not just an agent, she's a trusted neighbor who knows this community inside and out. Andrea's clients love how she makes the process smooth and stress free. One client shared, Andrea has such incredible relationships built over her many years in real estate, and she matched us with the perfect buyers within days, and the whole process felt seamless. Are you ready to find your perfect place in the Midlands? If so, visit andreareynolds.bhhsmidlands.com or just go ahead and click the link in the show notes. And be sure to tell her you heard about her right here on the Soda City Living Podcast.
That was never a thing. And so I think avoidance reinforces anxiety. And so when kids had to stay home and avoid social situations, it really reinforced any kind of anxiety that they had around social interactions with friends.
Yeah, yeah, I can
So,
see that. And having my kids knowing how old they were when we went through the whole virtual learning and the shutdown, I definitely I definitely saw a shift. And I remember we made some very conscious efforts to mitigate as much as we could, knowing that this can't be good. They're away from their friends, they're away from this interaction.
mhm,
We have to find a way for those things still to happen because that's part of their development and their growth. Raising healthy humans, you have to have these things.
Mhm.
You have to go through it. And if you
Right.
come on the other side of it, we all know this stuff. If we've lived through this whole COVID thing, everybody might be nodding their head going, yeah. When I first got out of grad school, my first job was in a counseling center. And this was in 2007, 2008. And
Mhm.
like you said, we didn't have, I think maybe social media was just coming out then and
Yeah.
cell phones were just becoming a thing. And I don't remember working with many students that had it was more of a depression to me back then.
Mhm.
Now it seems like it's more anxiety. Would you notice that in your practice?
Absolutely. Anxiety definitely takes center stage in my office.
Yeah.
Kids and adults, we have to be comfortable being uncomfortable. We have to sit in our discomfort and work through things. Anytime somebody feels the slightest bit uncomfortable or awkward in a teenager's life, they can distract themselves and look at their phone. And it's socially acceptable. There's no repercussions, but it keeps that anxiety reinforced. It keeps them from having to have that
Mhm.
uncomfortable conversation or having to work through those things. We didn't have to.
Yeah,
Long time.
that's so true. You can easily distract yourself just pulling out your phone and scrolling
Yeah,
instead of looking around and making eye contact and possibly talking to somebody. That's so true. Gosh, we're so lucky we didn't have to go through all this.
I
I feel
know.
for these kids.
I know. I
I
had
really
jury
do.
duty the other day and I wasn't selected. It felt like an eternity. And I wanted to reach in that bag and get my
Yeah,
phone. I struggle with it as an adult
sure.
with a fully developed brain.
I've been working to not pull my phone out when I'm in public and just pay attention to people. And you notice all the people who are on their phone. It's pretty wild.
It really is.
But that's a whole other thing. Adults and cell phones and social media use.
So when I say anxiety is a family problem, it is. And so let's say you have a teen that's anxious. There's something that they're afraid of, or it could just be a generalized anxiety situation. How the family, how the parents respond to that is huge. Are they going to make a bunch of accommodations? And lots of times parents are doing that from a good place. It's hard to see your kid in distress,
Mm.
right? And so they want to take that pain away. They want to make it better. That's a normal, natural parent response. So parents aren't doing anything wrong necessarily when they're accommodating these behaviors. Lots of times they don't realize that's actually reinforcing their teen's anxiety. So I really encourage therapists to sit down with the parents, and you can do it with the parents and the teen, however, whatever your style is. But over the years, I meet with parents before I meet with their kids. So for one whole session at least, I like to meet with one or both parents and get an idea of their perception of their teen's anxiety and how it impacts the family. How are the parents responding to it? And what's the parents' relationship with anxiety? Lots of times the parents have anxiety as well. So helping the parent get comfortable with their discomfort is going to be, I think that has to come first in order for them to be able to tolerate their child's discomfort.
Yeah.
Okay.
I really like how you sit down with the family first. I think that's really wise. That's really smart. That's really cool. Are the families ever like, why do you want to meet with us? It's the kid that has the issue. What's that? Does that ever happen?
It does. And once I get them in here and explain anxiety and all the things, more times than not, the parents buy in because they're bringing their child because they want their child to get help. And then when they realize they're a big piece of the puzzle, I would say 95% of the time, the parents are bought in and team players and want to do what's best.
Oh, that's great. I love hearing that
Yeah.
because I'm a believer in that myself. I think that it
Yeah.
does start in the home and that's where it's going to be figured out and worked on because the kid can come in every other week, but the work that's done at home in between is where the change really happens, I believe.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And and the parents, as parents, we send our kids messages all the time, not always the ones we intend to send.
Yeah.
And if the parent is anxious about their child's anxiety, it's very common that they are reinforcing it because they're like, you know, um, about whatever their child's worried about.
Yeah. Oh, and I'm just over here, yeah, if my kids are listening to this episode, I know they're like, "Oh, yeah. We know where
Oh,
we get it from. We know
oh
which
yeah,
parent is the one that has the anxiety issues."
for sure.
Yeah.
My daughter the other day, she started a new school, and I naturally was a nervous parent and was asking her apparently too many questions with
Mm.
anxiety all over my face. And she looked at me and said, "If you're worried if I have friends, I do." And I thought, okay, my questions have been sending the message
Yeah.
that there's something to be worried about. And she wasn't worried. I was.
I know. Isn't that crazy? It's like we're more worried for them and they're just not worried. It's so different. When I see that, I get this sense from them. I can see it on them. They're not worried. I'm worried. Why am I so worried? They can handle it. Like they've got they've and I think part of it too is it's like they grow and mature and you don't always notice but so much until there's a situation where you're like, "Oh, they've grown up a little bit. They're handling it different now. They're
Right.
not handling it like they did when they were 8." I don't see this one as 8. She's now almost 15. Like, it's very different, and
Yes.
it's hard as a parent sometimes.
Handle it is the message we want to give our kids. We want them to know it's okay that you experience anxiety. It's basically no big deal. We all have anxiety to a certain level
Mhm.
and you can handle it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. So how long would you say your average client sticks with you?
Oh, that's hard. It really depends on a lot of things. Some are more short term and some are long term. Some will work on something pretty hard. Let's say we have to do some exposure therapy if they have a phobia of some sort. We might do weekly sessions and then we can taper off. And sometimes they just will want to check in monthly. And I love when I can tell them, bye, you're good. Call me if you need me. That is the
Yeah.
best feeling. I try to keep them here as short of amount as possible. What does end up happening sometimes, though, is the kids that I saw in high school, they'll give me a call when they're in college if something
Yeah.
comes up. And so they know they can come back if they need some support. But yeah, I
Well,
like to
great.
empower them to go.
Yeah, yeah, and I know it's gonna be different for everybody
Yeah.
there's every client's so different and things could you might be working on teen anxiety, but then the next thing you know, you're working on something else. So it's all gonna just
Yes.
depend
For
on
sure.
it's also nuanced,
Right.
which is what makes this work. So interesting.
For sure. For sure.
So let's go back a little bit to some of the clinical work.
Sure.
How do you balance validating a teen's anxiety while still encouraging exposure, distress tolerance, or any type of behavior change?
Yeah. I love this question. So, a framework that I love for parenting in general, and it can be really with any issue, is yes to all the feelings. Like your child, your feelings, your client's feelings, they're always allowed and they're always accurate. If someone feels sad, they feel sad. If they feel mad, if they feel worried, we don't try to talk people out of the way that they feel. It is a waste of time, and it makes the person really it just causes disconnection. I don't like it. If I like to tell my husband something and he tries to talk me out of it, I can promise you that doesn't go
Yeah.
well. We
Same
want to be
here.
heard. We
Right.
want to be seen. So yes to feelings is the framework, and it's going to be like the validation piece. But we don't always say yes to behaviors. So in thinking of the context of teen anxiety, that's going to be we don't want to support. We want parents to not let their child avoid these situations that they're scared of,
Right.
right? So we want to validate their feelings, validate their worry. It makes sense that you feel worried. So we can be very supportive and validate our kids and hold the boundary with behavior, whether that be, and you're going to school today, and I know you can do it, right? So
Mhm.
it's that validation and we hold the boundaries with behavior.
Yeah.
Did I answer that second part to your question?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
How does that work in session with the client, with the teen?
Yeah. So lots of times with this, I guess this would be probably more applicable to when I'm working with just the parents.
Okay.
I'll encourage them to validate their teen and push them to go do whatever it is. Now, in the session with me, what that would look like, let's say there's a child that's scared of dogs, right? We might go down the street to a pet store. There's a little groomer down the street, and I'm going to validate the whole time, and then remind the child of the coping skills that we've learned in session.
Mhm.
And obviously, with the parents' permission, we're going to go to the pet store, and we
Mm.
might look at the dog. We might walk in and pet the dog. So basically, pushing them along, helping them face their fears, but in a supportive way. So while we validate and push them behaviorally.
Have you found certain therapeutic approaches or interventions are more effective than others?
Let's see. So, and thinking about anxiety really is an overestimation of a problem and an
Mm.
underestimation of your ability to cope. So we have overestimation of a problem and a worry and an underestimation of your ability to cope. So I like to do a twofold thing with assessing their coping strategies. What are they using right now? And how can we build on that? Coping strategies, I feel like it's not a one size fits all. I like to think of it as two buffet lines. You've got healthy choices and you have unhealthy choices. And we all pick from both, right? So I like to help them figure out a lot of different things that works for them with coping. And then so that's like the coping piece, the behavioral piece. So we want
Mhm.
them to just be functioning well and to feel like they have things that they can do when they're worried. And I do the CBT interventions for anxiety, the breathing, that's all great, but it's not going to work unless they practice
Yeah.
every day. So it doesn't really work to go relax when you're completely triggered and super anxious. So I encourage teens to practice, to set alarms. This is where the phones can be helpful. To set alarms in their phones, to practice mindfulness, to practice the breathing. And then the cognitive component, I think, is huge. Lots of times when teens are anxious, they're hard on themselves. They're really hard on themselves. So getting them thinking about their thinking, I think, is really helpful. And sometimes when they're really hard on themselves, I'll ask them, okay, what would you tell a friend? And so the friend test, I think it can be very effective with teens because they can think more clearly and be more flexible with their friends than with themselves. So I guess that's the CBT type things. What I really think can be effective is thinking about the anxiety as just one part of you.
Mhm.
So I'll tell them to go watch
Oh, the one
Inside
with the
Out.
different, yeah, Inside Out.
You
Yeah.
know, when they can think of the anxiety as one part of them and not their whole self, it can feel more manageable. So when we can externalize that anxiety, help them create a voice and just help them understand their relationship with anxiety, that's a really effective
Yeah.
strategy. I think lots of times we want kids get the message that it's supposed to go away, that anxiety's bad and it needs to go away and they need to never feel that. And that's just not reality.
Yeah.
As humans, we're all going to experience it. So
Yeah.
I think no matter what modality therapists use to communicate, hey, this intervention is not going to make this anxiety go away. We have to just get to know your relationship with anxiety, to know it's where you can manage it. You don't have to get rid of it.
I
It's
think
just that one part of you.
I like that because a little bit of anxiety is a good thing. A little bit of it is fine, like pressure to a paper or a report, or depending on how far you take it, college applications, like it's
Yes.
okay. Everybody feels it. And I think that's something too, is like as a teen, so much is changing and so many things ahead of you and so many options, and you're figuring out who you are and what you stand for and what you don't
Mhm.
stand for. It's a wonderful time, but it's also very hard and difficult, and
Yes.
with the phones and social
For sure.
media.
And the phones and the social media, like you said, they're trying to figure out who they are. And comparing yourself to others never feels good. But teens do that all the time. It's normal. There's lots to compare to on the internet. And
Yeah,
it's can be hard.
it can
So
for sure.
teaching them to put their phones to bed, don't take their phones, just the basic things can be helpful too.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so I know you are in private practice here in Columbia, South Carolina, and if anybody listening wants to work with Ann Mac, what's the best way to reach you?
So my website is annmacprevocounseling.com. It's ANNMAC. Prevost, PREVOST, counseling.com. And all my contact information is there. And I do parent coaching. I have a separate parent coaching business that's separate from a counseling practice. That website is actually in the works. If anybody wants parent coaching, my number is 803-464-7333.
Nice. And so when you say, for those listening, if you're a coach, you can work with anybody across the country, but clinically, as a counselor, you can only work with people. You're not licensed anywhere else, just South Carolina,
No,
right? Okay.
no.
Okay.
Yes. So this
Yeah.
would be for mainly geared towards parents who have anxious children
Mm.
or teens and they want to know how to best support them. That
Okay.
is, yeah. Or if
That's
it's a
good.
teenager who is just wants to get some coping strategies that might not have a true anxiety disorder.
When that website's ready, I'll add it back into the show notes. So stay tuned, but also call Ann Mac if you have questions. Do you work with therapists? Do you consult? Do you ever do that for therapists, clinicians?
I feel like friends that are therapists, we'll bounce things off of each other. I haven't done anything official with therapists, but I would be open to it.
If you're interested in chatting with her, running a case by her, reach out to her website and connect with AMAX. So before we end today, what is something that you want our listeners to know about working with teens and anxiety?
So if you are a parent and you have an anxious teen, or if you are a clinician and you're working with anxious teens, this is all going to be the same. It's going to apply to everybody. Really remember, you want to validate their feelings, and then you want to encourage them to face their fears. You want to send the message, you can do this. When you're working with parents, lots of times they have a easier time being supportive, but they might be more likely to accommodate or give the child constant reassurance, which just continues to reinforce the anxiety. And then you might have another parent this is ridiculous, that doesn't really believe that the child has these real fears and just wants the child to get over it, puts them in situations where the child might need some more skills before they're ready. So finding the balance of that is going to be the best. So the supportive nature and the confidence you can do it. So thinking about it, meeting in the middle is going to be the best thing for the child.
Awesome. That's so
Yeah.
helpful. And I really like that advice. Thank you so much for being here. This has just been fabulous.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Well, thanks so much for listening to Soda City Living. I hope you enjoyed today's conversation and feel even more connected to the people, places, and stories that make Columbia and South Carolina so special. Be sure to follow the show wherever you listen to podcasts so you never miss an episode. And if you loved what you heard, share it with a friend or leave a review. It really helps others discover the show. Until next time, I'm your host, Lisa Mustard, and this has been Soda City Living.